And if you're consumed nothing but national media this week, you'd be forgiven for thinking that Chicago was the only place to experience it. That's because this week's plunging temperatures have reinforced the old adage that extreme weather matters less when it doesn't involve New York, Chicago, Boston, or LA. We wouldn't mind it, except that it was considerably colder in the Twin Cities than it was Chicago, and even more so in the cities north and west of the metro. But you wouldn't know it by reading an NBC piece of polar vortex brings Chicago to a standstill. It's our own natural disaster. Or this article by The Guardian, which focuses mostly on Chicago, only to briefly note that, hey, one of the coldest places was actually in Minnesota. And, Chicago got its own separate piece in The Guardian about how they're making the best of life in the cold, while the UK BBC heavily features Chicago with two quick mentions of Minnesota. Over at CNN, its Roundup on the Vortex features an entire section on the frost quakes reported in Chicago, as well as residents in Michigan being asked to turn their thermostats down, something that also happened in Minnesota. Minnesota's mentioned once in the line storm-related deaths were also reported in Illinois, Minnesota, Indiana, and Wisconsin. Seriously, check out CNN weather report that literally shows colder temperatures in Minnesota, yet the meteorologist focuses pretty much entirely on Chicago. There are some honorable exceptions to the rule. The New York Times did a piece that, while Chicago was focused, does make some effort to reference some of the impact of the vortex on jail visits and frostbite admissions in Minnesota. And NPR as well gave a few shout-outs to Minnesota's response to the weather, not the least of Governor Tim Walz's decision not to announce statewide school closures, while the Wall Street Journal had a reporter in northern Minnesota.